So here we are at Brew Day. I'm gonna make brew a Pilsner, my own recipe. This is the fourth all grain that I've done. So I just run through the equipment and the procedure. So this is my mash tun that I've made out of a 50 litre chili bin. I've made up a copper manifold. I'll explain how that works later. Got a ball valve there, various gaskets. This is the wort chiller that I've made. It basically rapidly chills the wort from near boiling to around 24 degrees, which is the temperature you want to pitch or put in your yeast into your beer. We rapidly cool it so that bacteria doesn't form in the time it takes, a natural time it takes to cool down the wort, which would pretty much take all day if we didn't use one of these. So here I have my put a 50 litre pot just to fit, to fit all my what they call strike water that I'll be putting into the mash tun with the grain. I was trying to do it before with two 15 litre pots on the stove, but it was too hard to manage with two. So I invested in a 50 litre pot and also a burner, which they tell me is a lot cheaper. So I'm going to get this up to about 85 degrees and then mix it in with my grain. So here I have my grain, which is 5 kilos of New Zealand Pilsner malt, and so it's a bit of a New Zealand spin on a Pilsner because I've used the New Zealand, and also I've used some Nelson Rewaka hops, which is pretty much a pretty famous one with craft brewers. And also Green Bullet, which is very much a commercial, a lot of commercial breweries use that. And just using some dry yeast here, Bohemian and Lager, which is good for Pilsners. Pilsners generally are lower temperature fermenting, so I've kind of may have made a bit of a mistake doing this in this sort of weather. Kind of wants to be about 11 degrees fermenting temperature, and it's going to be probably about 17, so we'll just see how it goes. So this is my own recipe, so I've used I've named this one, because it's a New Zealand themed, I've called it Check This Out Bro Pilsner. So, got my strike water at 85 degrees, and I've just put it into the mash tun. So I'm just going to leave it in there for 5 minutes, and so it's just sitting away there. Leave it for 5 minutes just to let the temperature stabilise. Obviously, it's going to cool down once we put it into the chili bin. And also when we put our grains in, it's going to further drop in temperature. So 85, it's going to drop to about, hopefully, 67 is where our target temperature is. So we'll check that out. If it's a little bit above, I'll add a little bit of water, cold water. Bit below, yeah, maybe a bit of hot water, but we'll see. Now I've got my strike water in here. It's dropped. I don't know, about 7 degrees or something. It's about 78 degrees, and I've got my grain prepared here, and we're just going to open this up, and once we get our grain in, hopefully it'll go down to about 67. That's our target sort of temperature. So yep, so what we do is we just start mixing in the grain. And just keep mixing it in, try not to get clumps in it. So I put all my grain in, and I'm just going to mix it up. Try not to disturb the manifold. Don't want that falling apart. So what I'll do now, got a bit of a clump here. Just want all the water mixed around with the grains. Alright, what I'll do now is check temperature. I'm aiming for about 66, 67. Pretty ideal. And if we put the lid down for an hour, it should stay at that temperature. So we're on 68, pretty much on the dot, which is great. So we'll hold that down, put that down. So what I've done here is I've actually just given it a little bit more insulation. So I've just wrapped a duvet inner around it with some bungees. Just holds the temperature for a bit longer, a bit better. So yeah, now we'll start our timer, 1 hour. Cool. Right, so it's been in here for an hour, and I've just checked the temperature before, and it hasn't even dropped 1 degree, so it's still at 68. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to gently run off some of it. And it's going to be quite light. There's quite a lot of bits and pieces coming through there at the moment. But I'm going to run this off, and then I'm going to just pour it back into it. Just move this pot over. Oops. Alright. Now I'm going to gently put it back into the bed of grain. Try not to upset the bed of grain. And run some more off. Do this about 5 or 6 times. Just until it runs clear. Just lets it filter through, sort of tea bag effect, I guess. So that might be running through a bit fast. So every time you do this, it gets a bit clearer. So is it? So this is running a bit clearer now. This is about the 5th one. So I'll probably do one more, and then I'll start my what they call sparge. And what I'm going to do there, I'm going to drain off into the pot, and then just gently pour water onto here. Kind of at the same rate that it'll be going out of the pot, so it lets it all just soak through and through the grain. Sparge. So I'm draining off what's in there now, as you can see in here. And what we're doing is we're going to put in sparge water here. We're just going to gently put it through the grain. And it's called the sparge. So you want to do that so that it's going to be about, for my 20 litre batch, probably I will want in the pot to boil about 23, 24 litres. So we just do this little sparging over probably about half an hour, 45 minutes, just not too fast. We want it to filters through like a tea bag. So if you have a look here, we just want the water level just above the grain bed, and just constantly put it through. And we don't want the sparge water wants to be about 77 degrees. Anything above 77 degrees, bad stuff starts happening through the grains, and you get stuff you don't want. Just finishing my sparge now, and it's gone up to about, so you can see it's running pretty blooming clear now. It's always going to start darker and then go clearer as you sparge, as it gets a bit weaker. Now I'm just going to switch this off now. So I've got my boil quantity there, probably about 25 litres. So what I'm going to do now is I'll put the lid on. I'm going to try a little experiment. I'm going to actually do a second mash out. So I'm going to put about probably another 5 litres in here, and of water at the right temperature. So target temperature sort of 67. Just leave it for probably half an hour, and then I'll do my own little 5 litre boil up in here in this pot, and I'll do a little junior brew. So I just set up this for my little fermenter. It's just a 5 litre water container with an airlock on top. So I'm going to try that. Hey, if it doesn't work, nothing really lost. You know, a couple of bucks sort of effort, a couple of dollars sort of investment. So we go. It's probably going to be weaker. Might even be under 4%, but hey, taste should be in there because I'm adding equal amounts of hops, proportional amount of hops from this one. This one, and yeah, it should be interesting to see what happens. I've got a little packet of yeast from a kit that I didn't use once, somewhere in here, and I'm just going to use that, and we'll see how we go. A little experiment. I'm going to put in about 5 litres into this grain bed, do another mash out. So I've got my 5 litres of water here, and I'll pretty much just put it through this strainer that I used with the holes in it, like I did before. So chuck 5 litres in there, and then leave it for about half an hour and see what else we can get out of it. It's going to be pretty light, but we'll see how we go. Okay, so it's been half an hour with this one, this extra little one. So I'm gonna run it off now. Okay, so running off my second little junior batch of Pilsner. Tasted it, it's not very sweet, so we'll see how we go. But yeah, forgot to mention, I'm going to add just the proportional amounts of so 400 grams of dextrose, 400 grams of brown sugar, and well, I didn't have enough brown sugar, so I sort of had to top this. This is for the junior batch, this batch here. So the 100 grams of dextrose and pretty much a mix of 100 grams of brown sugar and raw sugar. So 200 grams of sugar, 800 grams of sugar. So just to bump up the this is just to bump up the colour a bit because it's quite light, the Pilsner, and yeah, hopefully with this one, because it's so damn light in colour, it'll bump up the colour a bit as well. Otherwise it's going to look like water. So it's nearly boiling, and I'll add my first addition of hops in a minute to the main batch, and also the sugar.